Hello, welcome back to the Mr. Arsenal podcast for this week's weekly podcast. As you can see, I'm joined by James Rowe, friend of the show, as we all know. But used to be regular, but obviously everything that's going on in the world, work as well. It's all been a bit of a holdback, but we've managed to sort something out, and here we are.
Indeed. First and foremost, Ryan, it's great to speak to you again. First and foremost, hello everybody. Nice to be back. For those that were wondering where I've gone and where I went to, no, me and Ryan did not have a falling out. We are still very much friends. The only thing is that for those that don't know, I was contacted by the publisher, The Secret Footballer, last October, with a view to publishing my future interviews and back catalogue. And since that time, it's been a really, really busy time where every time that Ryan has made inquiries, I've been preoccupied with different players and managers at all levels of world football, and it's been able to open up many, many doors. And upcoming interviews include the likes of Cohen Bramall, who Arsenal fans may well know. He transferred from Huddersfield Town to Arsenal. Also the likes of Pat Nevin and Trevor Steven, who went to 2 World Cups with England. So everyone has a story to tell. At the moment, The Secret Footballer publish my interviews every Wednesday. And upcoming interviews will include Ewan Spark of Elgin City, Mark Rutte, who managed Willem II in the Netherlands and also was the director of the Southampton Academy, and also Cohen Bramall. So some interesting interviews coming up, but great to speak to you again, Ryan, and thanks very much for your patience, and nice to be back on again.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you back on, and I think it's perfect time as well, because obviously European football's back.
Yeah.
There's no better person to talk about the European game, especially our game as well, and the opponents as well. We'll get onto that first, because obviously that's first in everyone's mind compared to the main topic we're going to talk about later on. Everyone knows it. What happened, my thoughts on the game was, and I think the thing is, for me, it wasn't like it's not like some fans have made it like it's at the end of the world, like we've lost the game. It's out of our control, because we've got even though it's at neutral venues, we've got, because of the rules in place, we've got an away goal, which is an advantage anyway, because it's apparently they count it as double. I don't know if that's true or not, or they've changed their mind on that or not. But either way, an away goal is always an advantage. And it means that now Benfica, in the second leg, have to come at us. They can't do what they did last night and invite the person, which benefits, if anything, it does benefit Mikel Arteta's gameplay and these players, because that's how he likes that teams come at him. We saw that weekend when a team that's open and comes at him, like Leeds, our players seem to thrive on that, and Arteta seems to thrive on that. I mean, what are your thoughts on the performance, the result, and everything in general?
Well, first and foremost, I saw a lot of similarities between the game against Olympiacos in Athens last February, where people seemed to think back then that the job was done. We were halfway there, and we were unfortunately undone at the Emirates. And I see a lot of similarities this time around with Benfica as well. They've got people obviously knew about the likes of Otamendi and Vertonghen and Terab, of course. But one player that caught my eye from Benfica last night was Lucas Verissimo. He's the defender they signed from Santos, and Pele's club. Santos being a huge name. That Santos it's not the biggest club in the world, but what they've achieved is nothing short of extraordinary, especially with the finances. And Benfica as well, being such a massive club. I mean, I wrote a piece for Chronicles of Laguna about the game and about the fact that unfortunately we can't be in Lisbon, and the size of a club like Benfica. This is 37 league titles, 26 Portuguese cups, 2 European cups, and obviously with Eusebio as well, and a good manager in Jorge Jesus. And it's just such a shame that the spectacle, both home and away, we can't enjoy it to the best of our ability. And what I do find very strange is that you look at the results last night. Manchester United won 4-0 in Turin against Real Sociedad, who are from San Sebastian in Spain. Granada, that game was played in Turin in Italy. Granada played at home in Spain against Napoli. So it's very strange how some of the ties are traditionally home and away, and some are on neutral grounds. And I do find it very strange how in games with neutral grounds that the away goal rule still applies. I find that extremely curious, and we've been in Europe for a long time. We reached the finals in 2000, 2006, and 2019. But I think Benfica. I think I managed to catch a tiny little bit of the press conference of Jorge just this morning, only a tiny little bit, mind. And I got the impression that he was really content. It's as if they've got Arsenal where they want them. Because obviously we know the power of the away goal as well when we lost at home to Monaco in 2015, where we underestimated them and look what happened. And
it's a common occurrence.
Yeah, well, it is. Do you know what it is, Ryan? It's as if not all of the fans, because some of our fans are extremely knowledgeable and all different ages and groups. But I get the impression if it's not Real Madrid, Barcelona, or Bayern Munich, every other team is a pub team. Before the COVID outbreak, I would often prioritise European games ahead of domestic games. I would fly back from Amsterdam for Standard Liège, for Frankfurt, for Ostersunds and Rennes and Napoli, and it was always exciting. But we haven't won a European trophy since 1994.
I watched this game the other day.
And but I was a young gooner at that time. But for me, that achievement and that whole journey, that means as much to me in terms of fondness as the double of 98, 2002, and the Invincibles, because it's kind of etched on your memory. I was very young at the time, but you were able. But the whole journey, Parma at that time on the Nevio Scala with Asprilla and Brolin and all the other great players they had as well, Italian internationals too. And we did it our way and we won. And, I just think now that, yes, the Europa League represents the best opportunity we've got to participate in the Champions League. But if you are completely honest, we're not ready for Champions League. We're not ready off the pitch. And we're not ready on it. I mean, to give you an example with Odegaard had a spell where he was playing for Vitesse Arnhem and Heerenveen. Now, both Vitesse and Heerenveen on their day can make life very difficult for the likes of Ajax, Feyenoord and PSV. There's no doubt that both clubs, especially with home advantage, do very well. But before securing the Odegaard deal, Arsenal took out a £120 million loan. And to secure the loan of Odegaard, they had to pay £2.5 million and his wages. And when you're dealing with real money in the middle of a pandemic, where people are tightening their belts and people are struggling, it's irresponsible to go out and spend money on positions that you don't necessarily need. And I think in the summer, we've got a lot of extensive work ahead of us, where we're going to have to make some unpopular decisions, where some of the fan base, they prioritize reputation, clout, and name above hard work and character. If you look at Leicester signing the likes of Son Jiku, Timothy Castagna, I've spoken to a fair few players. He was already excellent when he was playing for Genk. And the likes of Yuri Tielemans as well is an excellent player when he was at Monaco. So we've got to start to identify players better going forward and literally be careful with the funds we've got and make what could be seen as unpopular decisions. Because at the top end, behind the scenes of a football club, I spoke to an agent recently as well, where clubs are getting spammed, Ryan. Clubs are receiving spam in the form of a WhatsApp message of, dear, not even addressed, no dear sir, madame, no cordial writing or anything. It's, we've got this player, you want to see what he's like. And I just think with the likes of McGuinness and Ballard as well, we've got to give the youth a chance. Yeah. We've got to identify better. And we've got a lot of hard work to do in the summer, I believe.
Well, this is something Mikel Arteta had his press conference today. I don't know if you've seen. I've seen snippets of it myself. And the main part I took away is what he said. he wants to invest in the summer, but not overly like the whole squad. Oh, it's got to be all out abroad. And he wants to. He doesn't want to go away from the values of the club, and he wants to have the likes of Saka, Smith, those. Hopefully, McGuinness, Tyrese, John Jules, Balogun. Hopefully, if he signs a new contract, touch wood. I'm still 50-50 if that's going to happen or not.
Yeah.
But also, he also wants to get back. He wants to balance it out and help not to put everything on the youth. He wants them to have. He wants basically what Jules Graham did, have that balance when he came. Because Jules Graham, when he came in, there was players that just wouldn't fit his system. So he said, "Okay, boom, off you go. There's the door." And he brought in he recruited, but he invested in the youth at the same time. But when he recruited, it was the young, hungry, the desirable players that no one had ever heard of at that time, with all due respect, because of the clubs they played for respectively. And they didn't cost a lot of money because they were just up and coming. But because they had that raw desire to win and wanted to learn and improve their game, that meant more to George Graham at the time, and it worked because when he does bring him in, it's just the balance was perfect. And as we all know, what he achieved, 87, 89, the 91 league title, the double in
94.
And in 94. And
94 was amazing. And I was fortunate enough to interview Kevin Campbell earlier on last year. And I remember what he said to me when talking about George Graham. He said, James, he was called a lot of things. But if you're talking about a teacher teaching you the ways of the game as an individual and as a collective and everybody working together, there was nobody better. And for an Arsenal, Kevin Campbell, in my opinion, is also an Arsenal legend because he was part of that 94. It was part of that 94 winning side. Always gave his heart for the shirt. And he even said to me himself, he was a fan of the club. He was telling me that in the early days, when he had no money to go to Highbury, they would kind of go to the ground to get the atmosphere, soak it up, and listen to the game on the radio. And, he said that when he got to get into the stadium and to watch them play and then to score, it meant an awful lot to him. And he was just, so you talking about George Graham there reminds me of what Kevin said to me. And I think Arteta's doing a good job, but there is a long way to go.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's not going to happen like that.
The difference is as well, George Graham had that spell at Millwall, and Arteta didn't have any previous spell. He's gone from being an assistant to being manager of one of the biggest clubs in England and one of the biggest clubs in the world. But we've won a trophy, which is more than can be said for some clubs. I think with the League Cup, we kind of dropped a bit of a clanger because I think it represented our best chance to win a trophy. And also as well with the World Cup, also with the FA Cup.
Which is the World Cup.
So it shows how much of a busy day I've had. Also with the FA Cup, so it's very ambitious to think that you're going to win it for a 15th time. And Southampton, obviously, playing at home that time and seeing how they managed to progress, and football is also a long old season. Things don't happen in the blink of an eye. What I would like in the summer is to just go through the youth setup with a fine-tooth comb and think about what we're doing. Think about the youth coming through. Think about the offering the opportunities to the likes of Medley, to the likes of Ballard, to the likes of McGuinness. Like, we don't need another central defender.
We've got too many of them anyway.
Yeah, but if we buy another one in the summer, again, we know what we need. Try to be smart. Try to look at all the different leagues. Try to look at who's improving. In the Netherlands, there's many good players. In Portugal, there's many good players. In Belgium, there's very good players. It's not just about buying from the top 5 leagues. I see before Arsenal signed Odegaard, it was all about Slabosai. Slabosai, the Hungarian. Oh, he's the best thing since sliced bread. And then attention turned to Odegaard. So they're always looking for the next flavour of the month. But in the real world of football, it doesn't work like that. You can be flying high and you can have a bad injury, and it can never be the same. I spoke to a player today who suffered a broken leg, and they admitted themselves when they returned, they just was not the same. It was just completely different. And a lot of people think that you can plan a career. We're not talking about fantasy football here. We're talking about human beings that are on big contracts. And I'll give you a little bit of an example. People talking about the need to buy. We've got to buy. I spoke today to David Lee, who Chelsea fans will know. Played for Chelsea, was capped for England at under 21 level. He was also a scout for Arsenal. And I'll tell you what he said to me today. He said, James, it was an absolute joy to work for Arsenal, an amazing football club, and I really enjoyed my time up until when he was made redundant. He just signed a contract extension and he was made redundant. And so the people banging the drum to buy, here is a scout telling me who was loving life and loving the job of scouting players for Arsenal, and then all of a sudden he's been made redundant. But yet he'd only just signed a contract extension. So therein lies some Arsenal fans on Twitter, buy, but they're not thinking about the scout who's been relieved of his duties, who's only just signed a contract extension. And this is just one example. This is what I mean about obviously my perspective with interviewing professional players and managers at all levels of world football. My perspective is different. But when you're listening to these people who have gone to World Cups, who have won league championships, who have made transfers, their knowledge is absolute key. Because I had it a couple of days ago as well with the translation of Saliba's comments. There was one Arsenal fan on Twitter who said to me, there's translation of Saliba's comments. And I said to the guy in question, I said, where did you get your translation from? Oh, I got them from the networks. I said, but the person, I said, who has translated it? I said, I interview in foreign languages, but my name is on it. So if you open up my interview, my name is on it. So you know that it's reputable. If you're going to be picking from, I got my translation from a network or such and such a person, you don't know who's translated it and you don't know what has been said. And the tone upon which something has been said. It's very easy to translate something, but you've got to do it with all the encompassing things involved. Like we touched on Bergkamp, for example. I spoke to his nephew Roland in September 2017, and obviously the interview was about him and his career at Excelsior, Rotterdam, Brighton, and RKC Waalwijk. But I was sat opposite him, and I said, I just want to ask you one question about your uncle. I said, your uncle is one of the finest players of his generation, and by far and away the greatest Arsenal player I have ever seen. I said, did he ever give you any advice or encouragement regarding your own career? And he said, well, to be honest, James, I didn't see him very often. He said, but I became an Arsenal fan. He said, I became an Arsenal fan because obviously my uncle was playing for the club and you wouldn't see him for 80 minutes. And all of a sudden he'd give that through pass or he'd score that goal. And, it would change the complete complexion of the game. And obviously people know about the interview with Ian Wright that Dennis Bergkamp did. But you don't hear a peep out of him, Ryan. You do not hear a peep out of him. You don't hear him, obviously in the middle of a pandemic, but you don't hear, even before that, you'd be hard pushed to know where he lives. Very rarely would you see him in the media. And he very much keeps himself to himself. So, as I say, my point about the clamour for foreign interviews like Saliba, I believe a lot of the Saliba comments have been taken out of context. And when I've tried to tell people that I myself interview in foreign languages and I know what needs to be done and the responsibility which is involved, I have people telling me that it doesn't work like that. Well, yes, it does work like that because that's what I do.
How long have you been doing your job exactly?
Exactly, and I tried to explain to people that yes, people have their different opinions, but when you are sitting across from someone and you are, like for example, in my case with Dutch players and managers, every single interview of mine with a Dutch player, regardless of level, has been conducted in their mother tongue. They've been made aware that my publisher is an English publisher, but I've said to them, I will be the one to translate it from Dutch to English. Why? Because I've been living here for 15 years. So I know exactly what needs to be done. Nothing will be brushed over. Nothing will be literally translated. It will be completely on the money, or it's not going to be published. And thankfully, with the depth that's involved, but I do feel with the Saliba comments, Ryan, I do believe a lot of it has got out of hand. I really do.
Oh, of course it will, especially if our media gets hold of things. They hide it because they want a reaction from our.
Yeah, but my point was, what is the name of the person who translated the comments or conducted the interview? That's where you need to dig in. And obviously, people have taken lots of things out of context. And I'm not talking about a network. I'm not talking about a particular Twitter handle or a site. I was merely saying to some Arsenal fans who inquired to me about Saliba and this and that, I was just making a point to them that as someone who interviews players and managers in a foreign language apart from English, I know what needs to be done and the responsibility involved, because you're putting something out there that might not necessarily be true. And then in the case of Saliba, lots of things are coming out, and it's like a game of Chinese whispers. Oh, he said this. Oh, he said that. But you don't know, and it can cause damage to the player, can cause damage to the club, and also kind of distort the fans' opinion of the player as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there with the Saliba situation. I mean, what frustrates me, as he said, people just see things and they don't take the time to go and do the research and go back and make sure that person, where they've seen it from, is actually the real source of that quote or what that interview and things like that. And they just go, oh, he said this or that, so that's it. And they're going absolute rage. And this is the thing, the people that put this stuff out there for these fans to do things like that want that because they want the clicks, they want the retweets, they want the attention. And it's just like, I mean, it's another dark side to what is football social media at the moment.
Absolutely. Like, and I've often said I've been on Twitter since 2016. I have just shy of 7,000 followers. It wouldn't bother me if I had 50. It really doesn't matter. All it is it's just another medium upon which to put my work out. I've had people in the past say to me, "Can you retweet this? Can you retweet that?" And I would say no. And they would say, "Why not?" I said, "Because it's a football account. It's got nothing to do with politics, got nothing to do with anything else. I said, it's just a football account for my own work, my opinion, and endorsing or agreeing with the opinions of others." But I think as well, you see with the other side where lots of people, it's all about the clamour. You can also buy followers, and that's the murky side of it, isn't it? I know a couple of accounts where they've been offered money for the handle, and that tells you all you need to know, isn't it? That tells you all you need to know. I mean, all I say, it's just another medium. But when the fans kind of, as you say, they take it and they run with it, they need to really think about the welfare of players. Because I've spoken to players, Ryan, where a transfer has made their career and broken their career. And for a lot of young players, when they move abroad to another club, they are learning life skills for the next. They're learning life skills for the future, and they're living on their own for the first time in their lives. It's not simply the case of, oh, I'm signing for Arsenal, my family are coming with me. It's not always possible. So for many young players, they're living on their own for the first time in their lives, and they are they're learning life skills. They're learning how to cook. They're learning how to iron. They're learning how to do all the things they need to do. And this is another thing where, in the case of Saliba, when you sign for a club and you move to another country, the club becomes your family. They are the closest people to you. You might be on your own. You might need time to adapt. And as someone who, I'm not a professional footballer, but I did move to another country at a very young age, and I know all the pitfalls, all the standing and learning the local language and the culture, and that you need time. And I just think in the case of Saliba, I worry that we're never going to see him in an Arsenal shirt again. I worry, but if you look at it from this point of view as well, Ryan, his central defensive partnership at St Etienne was Wesley Fofana. Wesley Fofana is, as they say, doing bits with Leicester. So if you're William Saliba and you see your former teammate, who together they reached the domestic cup final, if you're seeing your former teammate in the heart of that defence going on to do really well for Leicester, and you made your decision to go to Arsenal, I can understand that you feel a little bit perturbed and you feel a little bit upset, because I mean, I rate Daniel Ballard extremely highly, but Saliba come through at St Etienne, was signed for £20 million, and Saliba's in the under-23s along with Daniel Ballard, and Fofana is starting Premier League games. So this is what I mean about the small, minute details in that respect.
Yeah, also, and with that, I mean, Arteta has said it again. He has said that he did make a mistake. He should have included him in the League Cup squad, the European League squad, and given him a first team experience. Because his whole thing was he's not had enough experience. But the second you knew he weren't going to be able to leave on loan in the summer, use these next few months just to, especially Europa League. I mean, no disrespect to the teams that we had. They're perfect for him to sort of bleed himself in, give him that sort of, okay, this is what it is at Arsenal. This is intensity at this club to be against the ex-opponent, X, Y, and Z. And then if he does well, you give him the old Premier League game here and there, or the League Cup game. And then just before January, you start reassessing things a couple of weeks before, and you start reassessing. You have to sit down, have a chat, see where things are, and then we go from there. It was just like, no, he's not going, so we're going to keep him on the sidelines, play him in the under-23s. You can imagine a 19-year-old, with everything he was going through anyway, mentally, with the loss of his mum in the summer as well, with all COVID and all that. It must have messed him up even more. He must have been absolutely livid and like, oh, hang on. I signed to play for the Arsenal first team. I was promised first team football. I've come from playing first team football in the Ligue 1, Premier League, and I've been treated literally like I'm coming up through the club's academy and I'm like a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you remember Philip Sandler, who signed for Manchester City from Pep Guardiola? Do you remember him?
Rings a bell, yeah.
Yeah, I interviewed him 3 weeks after his news broke that he was signing for Manchester City, and I went to Zwolle to speak to him at the training at the ground. And I was one of the first people to speak to him once the news had broke. And obviously the interview wasn't all about Manchester City. It was just one little part of it. And I said, it's not very often that somebody goes from Pep Guardiola to Manchester City. I said, how did this come about? He said, James, they really sold it to me. He said, they literally told me that I will be training with the first team with the likes of David Silva and Sergio Aguero. He said, and my medical took an age. My medical took an awful long time. And then he signs for City, plays very, very few games, is loaned to Anderlecht, plays also very few games, and returns to City. And the things that they say to encourage players. I spoke to a Dutch player this week called John Lammers. He scored over 100 goals for NAC Breda. Played football in Toulon, played football for Toulon in France, and also managed the likes of FC Eindhoven and Excelsior Rotterdam. His nephew, Sam Lammers, played for PSV and now plays for Atalanta. And this is a striker and a manager with an awful lot of experience. And he was telling me that sometimes in a professional career, you can make the wrong decision. Sometimes you can have lots of different options, but you can still make the wrong decision. And you look at Donny van der Beek. You put out a great tweet yesterday that I saw, which I thought was really good. A waste of a a waste of a talent. And do you know Marco van Basten said the same? On Sunday evenings here in the Netherlands on the football show called Rondo, sometimes they have Van Basten and Gullit on together. You know, it's a panel and a half, but they're literally sitting. Yeah, they're literally sitting on a table chatting about football. And Van Basten said, I think it was back in, I think it might have been October or November. Marco van Basten said, and I quote, "It's not healthy. It's not healthy for a guy of that age to have made such a transfer and to not be playing." And there was an interview that Van der Beek did with Dutch media where he let the Dutch media NOS know that he was well looked after. They found accommodation for him and his girlfriend. He was chauffeur driven to training and back again. But he's hardly playing. And I watched him. I mean, it makes me feel old. I mean, I watched him when he first broke through. And I tried to tell everybody, because I was on different podcasts for Manchester United podcast, trying to let people know about him. It looked, for all the emphasis in the world, that he was going to go to Real Madrid. It looked like the worst kept secret in football. And then all of a sudden, he goes to Manchester United. And for him to sit on the sidelines now, and this is a lot of things, especially with Arsenal fans on Twitter, they really do not realise what it does to a professional player, especially a young professional player, when they don't play. Do you remember Sanchez Watt? I'm going back a little bit now. I want to make a really good point. Do you remember Sanchez Watt?
Yeah, Sanchez Watt coming through,
Yeah, I interviewed Sanchez Watt when he was playing for Wealdstone. And I'll never forget what he said to me, Ryan. He said he went on loan to Leeds from Arsenal. And he said, and I quote, "At that time, hardly any of the young players wanted to go out on loan. They all wanted to stay in the first team squad and train with the first team squad. He didn't. He wanted to go and play. He said he went to Leeds and he was well looked after and treated as if he was one of their own." So there is a fellow young player saying to me that at that time, the young players at the club, they were happy to train with the first team and happy to train with the Fabregases and the Van Persies, but they were happy with that, but he wanted a little bit more. And I think, especially obviously now, lots of people on Twitter are giving their opinions, but yes, my perspective is a privileged perspective, but it's been 5 years in the making. I didn't rock up and speak to Jamie Carragher and Bob Wilson and Jeff Thomas in the blink of an eye. It starts from speaking to Dutch players and managers that nobody's ever heard of in their mother tongue, and that gives you like a grounding. But I think with the clamour for to sign different players almost every month, like when it was about Fekir, and after Fekir it was Slabazai, and after Slabazai it was Odegaard. We need to come away from that now, because I can tell you this now, Ryan. Leicester fans, they didn't moan about Castagna, they didn't moan about Tielemans, they didn't moan about Shinjuku.
Maddison as well from Norwich.
Maddison or Fofana, and look at them. They're kind of green with envy, really. Green with envy.
Oh, yeah. They're doing basically. If you think about it, what Leicester done is what George Graham did. If you think about it,
they are acting like we used to act. And do you know how it starts? Starts at the top, Ryan. It starts at the very top. You've got an owner who suffered an awful turn of events, and the whole club. But he's carried on that mantle, where the welfare of the club is the most important thing. The welfare of the club is the most important thing. And we've got an owner, Kroenke, in my opinion, he just sees Arsenal as a sound, healthy investment. That's it.
I've said it for years. The reason he ever sold to Usman, I've always said, was because we are the gold pot. Because we are London Club, Premier League. It's Arsenal, big name as well. Yeah. We are the gold pot to help finance and take. He's taken out loans in the club's name
for
not even for Arsenal benefit. It's for the LA Rams or whatever other franchises he owns. And the other side, and it's that infamous time. What was it when he had like 70% of these shares? When he took 300 million out of the club, and then 2 weeks later, the AGM, he's just sat there. He didn't. Fans are there, obviously angry, and asking, "Why have you done that? What benefit? Why have you done that? Why have you done that?" And it's just gone straight into your pocket, basically. Why is that benefiting us? You're the one that's leading the fort, basically. And he said it stemmed from him. He's the main man. No matter what he puts it in his company's name, he is in charge of that company, so he owns the club. Then it's his son Josh. And then it goes down to the rest of the board, etc., etc. And then it goes to Edu. Then it goes to Mikel, who's the last man of defence in terms of non-playing staff. And then you've got the players. And it all seeps through. We've seen it for years. I mean, we saw it for the last how many years under Wenger, which we'll get on to now as well, because obviously Arsene Wenger was on beIN Sport for last weekend for the Liverpool game, all Saturday games basically. And Richard Keys and Eddie Gray virtually was there. And it came up at one point. Richard Keys mentioned Arsenal. He was basically saying, what is it? Why did things not go right with us at the Emirates? Why did you never agree with it? Why is it now you're only saying you never agreed with the move? Because he said this, he said that. And Wenger basically came back and said he never agreed. He didn't like the look of the Emirates in the first place because it looked like the space between the fans and the pitch. It takes away from the atmosphere, the soul of the club. But he also goes on to say he was then put in a position where every summer from that 2006 summer onwards, for the first how many years, he had to sell his best players, no matter what. Or the club would have gone. In his words, the club would have gone bust. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. Do you believe that, or because for me, the club itself, Arsenal, have always been known as the nickname, the Bank of England, because of how well run we are. So you're telling me, in a time when we were competitive as well, we're moving when we're competitive to a new stadium, state of the art, brand new, modern at the time, this, that, and the other. But we don't sell if we don't sell any of our best players in the next how many years, with all the loans we've got in place as well, and the structure we had for the stadium, to pay off the stadium, that if we don't sell our best players, we're going to go bust. I think for me, it comes across a bit of an excuse to justify in his head why things didn't work out at the Emirates. Why we never won new titles? Why things started going spiraling out of control years later?
I think if we go back to the very beginning, I'm sure I'm going to show my age here. I remember going to Arsenal Aston Villa in December 2001, and the front of the programme was the model of the Emirates with Peter Hill-Wood and Wenger handshake, and it heralded like a new dawn where it was all going to be built. And Arsenal were going to compete with the likes of Real Madrid, Bayern Munich and the rest. But nobody failed to say that Real Madrid and Bayern Munich and Barcelona, these clubs are run in a completely different manner. And I look at Wenger and I think, at Monaco, turned down every club under the sun, didn't want to go anywhere, was happy to stay. And, if you think about when he was at Monaco and with Glenn Hoddle and winning the league and George Ware and giving young players an opportunity. And, if you'd have said to him back then in the late 80s, you will have a period in your career where that's what you do. You sell your best players and you finish in the top four and you're more of a bank manager than a football manager. I'm not sure he would have taken that. But I think he got maybe a little bit too comfortable, and also as well the morals involved, Brian, where he was saying, if I spend £150 million, it's irresponsible in his book. Yes, but you also have to move with the times, and there's rumours about the rumours about Mbappe as well, where he was round at Mbappe's house, and it's the same. We had the same with Drogba. He said, I could have signed Drogba for €100,000 when he was at Le Mans. And he didn't.
The amount of players he could have signed, Ibrahimovic, Ronaldinho, Yaya Toure, the list is endless. It's come on.
Yaya Toure was on trial. I remember.
And apparently it's a fantastic trial, but because he missed a shot, Wenger went, no, bye, off you go. And I'm like,
Well, I remember there was a program. I can't remember which game it was, but in the program you'd have photos of previous games, and there was like Yaya Toure in a trial game against Barnet, and he ended up going on loan to Beveren in Belgium. And there's one point I want to bring up is Robin van Persie. He did a Dutch podcast a couple of months ago, and what I'm going to tell you, I tweeted it out, but you might have read it, you might have not. But what I'm going to tell you is God's honest truth, right? Van Persie never got on with Gazidis. They never saw eye to eye.
No, you could tell.
It looked for all the world that Van Persie was going to go to Juventus. Van Persie himself, when confronted with the possibility of moving to a domestic rival, Van Persie himself said, "Look, you don't want this." He said, "If you're going to sell me abroad, fine. But if you're going to diver and you're going to be unpredictable and unsure, then there is a risk that I could end up joining a domestic rival." He wasn't threatening. He wasn't threatening them. He was just being honest. And he said he was very, very close to Juventus. And he said that Gazidis, and this is the tricker, you've got Van Persie, one of the finest strikers of his generation, extremely technically gifted. Gazidis is trying to impress Van Persie with pie charts and statistics about how financially healthy the club is. Robin van Persie then replies, I don't give two hoots about your statistics or your healthy finances. I want to win a league title. And then with Juventus, Gazidis didn't see eye to eye with the CEO of Juventus. So when the CEO of Juventus rang to make the inquiries about buying Van Persie, he didn't pick up. He didn't check his emails. Gazidis went on a personal holiday in the middle of a transfer window. So Van Persie is in limbo, thinking he's going to Juventus, but Gazidis is not picking up his phone. And then the deal to Juventus falls through because Juventus get annoyed, and he ends up joining Man United. So a lot of people with the Van Persie rhetoric, I mean, it's okay for me. It's different. I understand every word that comes out of his mouth. Not every British person does. But of course, when you listen to that podcast, I tweeted out when I listened to it about 4 or 5 little snippets, and people were like, "This is unreal." But this is something that he said in his own mother tongue. And that's the advantage of speaking to players in their mother tongue, the clarity involved. And just to say, with Kroenke at the moment, until a new owner comes in who's hell-bent on the welfare of the football club being number one, I can't see us making significant progress. I've tweeted out in recent weeks about Kroenke, not in a bad way, but if I was to go full meltdown, I would never get an interview ever again with any professional. So
exactly.
You've got to use your brain. And I am an Arsenal supporter. I'm also a football writer who's fortunate to interview professional players and managers at all levels of world football. But I put a tweet about Kroenke after, I can't remember which defeat it was. I think it was the
too many this season.
No, Aston Villa. It was the Aston Villa defeat at Villa Park. Aston Villa defeat at Villa Park. Yeah, I tweeted out, until he's gone, doesn't matter what happens, whether you change the manager, whether you can buy whoever you like, until he's gone, there'll be no significant progress. I received replies saying, "Oh, Kroenke didn't play." I'm not talking about playing. Kroenke wasn't on the pitch.
Exactly.
No, he wasn't on the pitch.
No, but he runs the show. It's his business. He's the top dog.
Yeah. And when you see as well, I think on Trump's last day, Kroenke is sitting on his table. So
for God's
I'm not trying to turn it into politics here. Whether you are Democrat or Republican doesn't matter. But I'm just making the point that the outgoing president of the United States of America, Kroenke, is not in London with his finger on the pulse. Kroenke is sitting on the same table as Trump as he prepares to leave his office. That tells you all you need to know about the priorities of Stan Kroenke at this time.
Oh, and also wasn't Stan, even though his team wasn't involved in the Super Bowl, wasn't he? I think he was at the Super Bowl as well on the day. I think it was the day after, obviously. But obviously he couldn't be in the country and in the States within 24 hours because obviously the flight and all that from the UK.
Of course.
So it's just like where he's party, but it's just Rams home. It's just,
of course.
I mean, it is what it is. But for him to, again, and everyone knows I cannot stand Crockett. He is the poison of the club, as we've all discussed in this podcast numerous times since I've started this channel. But there's got to be, there has to be, for someone to come in, they've got to have so much firepower that it won't hurt their pockets, but getting him out the door, because that's like the way he'd be at the door. Because if they've got to have so much more than what Usmanov have, basically, and even then, I think maybe then Josh made it this time just. Because the last time he was like, Dad, we need to sell. I think this time he was like, Dad, sell. Just get us out of it because this ain't good for any of us.
Well, Usmanov actually appeared to care about Arsenal.
Yeah.
And with Kroenke as well, you just know, I mean, I'm not a businessman of any level, but you just know that the first offer that's brought out to him is going to turn it down. You know he's going to turn it down. Even if it's eye-watering, he's going to turn it down. And, it's a shame, really, because if Kroenke loves the LA Rams and he loves the LA Kings and, obviously being part of the Denver Nuggets as well, obviously he prioritises them. But, he's a fan of certain clubs. So he must know what it's like for a fan to suffer. So, it's strange times, but, who would have thought in the days of George Graham, in the early days of Wenger, in the pomp of Arsene Wenger, that we'd be in the position we are today. We've been in that stadium for 15 years, and there's no league title, but yet we moved there to compete. It's
just a few FA Cups. That's it.
Strange.
And most of them have all come in the last few years. That's it. But I'm saying we're not competitive like we were.
No.
And the whole
I know the landscape has changed, but and people say, "Oh, nobody could have foreseen Chelsea." Maybe not, but you have to combat it in a different way. And we've just we haven't really kept our finger on the pulse. Really, we're now in a very precarious position in the league, and we've got to go all out for the Europa League, and I can't see us winning that. So it'll be no European football next season, I believe.
Which, again, even though they're hating it, hurt their pockets, from a playing perspective, it may benefit Mikel having more time in the training pitch with the players. It's just week to week domestically. Maybe, we don't know. And that's the thing. Our generation of our fan base and the older generations before us, they'll most of them will. There's obviously a few will be a bit on edge because they want to be competitive again. But we'll be like, okay, if that's the case, give them this next season and see how it starts and go from there. Whereas the younger generations behind us are so trigger happy. They want instant success. They don't have that patience like we have. And I mean, literally before '89. Arsenal fans had to wait, and they went through some drag basically football, and from 71 to 89, 18 years, as Adam said, 18 years of hurt. And I'm watching other podcasts like the Hybrid Squad, and Amanda, one of the panelists on that channel. She says there's times when the Hybrid was not even half full. You could sit in when you sit or stand wherever you wanted because it was that bad in standard of football, no matter. I mean, the Don Howe, Terry Neal era and things like that. But at the same time, the board at the time cared about the club so much, especially the Terry Neal situation. There was unrest there. They had a meeting midweek, and then the next day, a day or two, he's gone, and they move on. Whereas, as I said, literally, the second David Dean in 2007 walked out the door at the end of that Man City game in April. It hasn't been the same. It's this what we're in now. What we're in now has been coming from that day, and it all stems from Stan then buying all them shares, and then eventually coming the owner and making everything private. Because everything's private, you can do what you want. He doesn't have to answer to no one.
No, and that's the sad thing now. And you say about the board, the likes of Danny Fisman, Peter Hillwood, David Dean, Ken Fryer, they were all custodians of Arsenal Football Club. Custodians of Arsenal Football Club. There are two clubs in English football bigger than what we are. That is Manchester United and Liverpool. And that's a fact. That is an absolute fact. If you're talking about, 13 league titles and 14 FA Cups and Fairs Cup and Cup Winners' Cup and 2 League Cups as well in 87 and 93. And, you can't buy history. We've got a massively rich history, but we're just in a bit of a bad place at the minute. But you say about the young fans on social media as well, Ryan. Have they ever seen Arsenal win a league title?
No,
I don't think
they haven't. Well, it's been what?
We are lucky.
16, 17 years.
We have been lucky to experience 89. Okay, I was very young. 91, 98, 2002, and 2004. And I go back to wrap up this point. I go back to, one of my favourite interviews with Bob Wilson when it was, I think it was August 2019, and I asked him about the 1990s, 1970, 1971, because before the Invincibles and before the George Graham era, that squad and that team was looked upon as one of the finest Arsenal teams we've ever had, and still are one of the finest Arsenal teams we've ever had, in the likes of George, McClintock, Radford, Armstrong, Wilson, and others. And I said, how did that squad come to be the squad they were? And he said, well, James, he said, we lost the League Cup final to Swindon in 1969, and we were literally labelled the shame of London. He said, and Frank McClintock literally wanted to shove it down everybody's throat that we can get back to how we are and to the standing that we appear to be. And, that 1969 Cup final defeat to Swindon literally started that journey. And then you go on to obviously the, winning the Fairs Cup as well, first trophy for a long time, and also the 1971 double. It took time, but they got it together. And we've got now, I've often said recently as well, Ryan, what we've got to do, we've got to get through the season in one piece. That's what we've got to do. Just get through the season in one piece, and then evaluate in the summer. Don't go buying on the basis of reputation. Look at somebody's character, look at the hard work, look at the previous, and look at all these things. There are loads of footballers based all around the world. They're not all rich. Some right now in the middle of a pandemic, some players are hardly being paid. If you go away from the Premier League and La Liga and you go down to different levels at different countries, some players are not being paid. So you imagine being a professional footballer and not being paid, and where you may move to another country and you have to live off your savings when you're a professional footballer. These things are happening right now. And we've got to, in the summer, we've got to just evaluate, just look at players who will be interesting. Like I'll give you two just before I go. Hinteregger at Frankfurt. I did a piece for the Chronicles of a Gooner last summer transfer window. And I said about Hinteregger at Frankfurt, capped by Austria, is above 6 foot tall, can also play in midfield, can also be versatile. He's not the biggest name in the world, but he can do a good job. Wout Weghorst at Wolfsburg. Every time I watch Wolfsburg, he seems to score. And he's criminally underused at international level. It's a travesty, really. And he's scoring goals, he's scoring goals. I rated him since his days at Heracles here in the Netherlands. He moved from Heracles to AZ Alkmaar, and from AZ Alkmaar to Wolfsburg. And he's scoring goals in a very strong Bundesliga. Wout Weghorst and Hinteregger, for example, would be two very good players that I would like to see Arsenal look at in the summer. But again, they're not big, they're not huge names. I doubt people would have heard about Weghorst and Hinteregger from Frankfurt, but they're very good players. So it's about using our brains in the summer, giving the youth a chance, and stop wasting money. Treat that money as if it's your own.
As if it's gold, as if it's something like it's gold dust, literally, like it's so rare. Like you want to, and like George Graham, basically like George Graham did. I keep going back to it because that's what he did. They may have been cheap, and at that time of where football was at that time, but he knew what he was doing. He wasn't going to overspend for the sake of it. If that was the case, he may as well kept the likes of Johnny Nicholas in the first place.
Exactly. But different times and society changes. But we just take it day by day, take it week by week. Thursday is going to be a real roller coaster.
Oh yeah,
and
you know it is because there's no home parties either. Potentially, I think it will go to that. I'll probably go to that length as well. Was me not 3.5 hours on this again. But yeah, before we wrap up, as I said off air, I wanted to ask you about your thoughts on Mitchell Bergkamp, Dennis's youngest child, his son, in a 6-month trial at Watford. What did he play? Has he played in obviously at any level in Holland? And what is it? What is the noise around there since he's obviously signed for Watford, even though it's a temporary base, like 6-month basis at the moment?
Well, to go back into their past, he was on the books at Almere City, who are a club who harbour ambitions of getting up into the top flight in the Eredivisie, and obviously being in the youth setup at Almere for a long time. Also had a trial at Arsenal as well. It didn't quite work out, and it's an opportunity for him. He's a completely different player to his father. He's heard from a very young age. Obviously his father being such an amazing footballer. And he's completely different to his father. It's the same with Patrick Kluivert. Justin Kluivert at Leipzig is not. He's not his dad. He's not a carbon copy of his dad, and it's a good job too. They've got to be completely different players.
That pressure, you got to imagine that pressure mentally having that on your head for any sort of player, especially them players, especially.
Well, Daley Blind as well at Manchester United. When he was at Manchester United, had the same. And they are players in their own right. Be interesting to see what Mitchell does, but it's his father Dennis. He always kind of left him to his own devices to make his own decisions, which is also something which is very important. It's very important that young players learn to grow, and obviously here in the Netherlands, particularly of the bigger clubs, the likes of Ajax, Feyenoord, and PSV, and AZ, they sacrifice a lot in their youth to become professional footballers. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. And obviously here in the Netherlands, there's a lot of noise around Calvin Stengs at AZ, a lot of noise about Boadu at AZ as well, and obviously Gravenberg as well at Ajax. So there's still the conveyor belt of good players coming through. But be interesting to see how Mitchell gets on, and be keeping a keen eye on it.
I think every Arsenal fan's keeping a keen eye on it because there's a few. When he did sign on deadline day, again, it's a 6-month deal at the moment, and then obviously they'll be assessing the summer because obviously with COVID, finances they get. But it's interesting. The scout for Watford worked at Arsenal and worked alongside Bergkamp in the staff. He saw Bergkamp face to face, day to day, and he said Mitchell, in terms of his personality and mannerisms, is a spitting image of his dad in that sense. He's so like genuine. He's not one of these like because of who they are or who their dad or their relative is or up themselves. Like, look at me, because look, I got it because of that. He's done it because of his hard work, and he's recognised that going to Watford and recommended him. And hopefully it does work out, because obviously there's some Arsenal fans saying if it does work out, that means Dennis will come back to England and being Watford's next door to us in training, he'll go to Arsenal.
Maybe, but as I say, you don't hear a peep out of him. And having spoken to a professional footballer of the Bergkamp family in Roland Bergkamp, Dennis's nephew, and Mitchell's cousin, the personality is very much one of a modest personality. For the Arsenal fans on the channel that haven't seen me for a long time or are hearing me for the first time, I'll leave you with a little story. The young Dennis Bergkamp wanted to be a physiotherapist and was told by his parents But yes, football is important, but you must do your studies. You must be serious about your studies. So young Dennis harboured ambitions of being a physiotherapist, and he thought that he could combine physiotherapy with football. But there was just so much time within football that he just couldn't combine it. He just couldn't combine it. And I know of someone who was in the same physiotherapist training centre as what he was. And that person told me a story once of Bergkamp just broken in to the Ajax setup. And he was in the corridors of the training centre for physiotherapists to learn about all the different facets. And the guy I was speaking to, he said he recognised who Dennis Bergkamp was. He said, "Oh my God, it's Dennis Bergkamp." But nobody was talking to him. It was a very young 17, 18-year-old, but nobody was talking to him. So he didn't have loads of people around him. It was just kind of leaning against the wall, trying to find out how things are going on. And even the guy I was speaking to was saying, even as a football fan, oh my God, it's still Bergkamp. No, but he was extremely, extremely modest. I mean, Arsenal, the documentary they did about Dennis on the Arsenal YouTube channel was just a work of art. And one of the saddest things for me was when Dennis says that in that documentary, when he saw Almunia stripping off, he knew to replace Lehmann, he knew that he wasn't going to play any part in the Champions League final. And if you compare that to Frank Rijkaard, Frank Rijkaard chose Larsen to come on and change that game, and Barcelona won. If only we'd have had the same foresight that the greatest player that we've ever seen could have done the same for us.
Literally, it would have been his last game as well. When you think of the
sacrifices he made as well, it's just unbelievable. I mean, I don't know if I'll get to speak to him one day. I often joke with colleagues and friends here. I said, if that happens, I think I'll retire, because to speak to the greatest ever Arsenal player in his mother tongue. Well, I think that would be very special. But as I say, we'll just have to see how it goes. But I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, definitely. And just before we go, there's a comment in the chat I just want to address quickly. It's nothing malicious or anything. It just says, obviously, saying how many subs I've got, can't get 200 views. For me, it's the reason that's been because just as the channel was growing at the time of the subs and it got to where it is now, I became ill away just after the New Year and had to take time away, but I left other people in charge of the channel. But me as myself wasn't on. So for a couple of weeks, so obviously numbers fell. I'm having to start again, and also I wasn't consistent. I was always at the time was just the watch alongs. I'm bringing back the weekly podcasts. I'm doing the quizzes, the watch alongs, and all other content as well to get the traction back. Because also you've got to remember, there's a lot of Arsenal channels here on YouTube. And quite a few of them will be live as we speak. So I'm also competing. We're not competing against each other, but it's the sense of, because they're more well known as well in what they do and how long they've been doing it longer than me, that people will go watch them first live and then maybe come over here afterwards and things like that. So it's nothing dodgy going on before we go. I've had that conversation as well back in December, and to the point I had to literally defend myself here on the channel and put the wrongs to the put my side of the story right and basically defend myself, because people were saying, "Well, hang on, but because there is literally streams I've done where I've got over 2,000 views, 500 things like, and as the channel was growing at the time, it's just literally potluck basically. It's nothing dodgy. I can assure you.
Well, first and foremost, you've got to enjoy what you do. I mean, like people say to me, speaking, having almost 300 interviews with the likes of Jamie Carragher and Trevor Stephen and Pat Nevin and Bob Wilson, they say to me, "Oh, it must be amazing." I said, "It is amazing." I said, "But it's also extremely hard work." I said, "You're dealing with professional players and managers at all times." I get an awful lot of people, Ryan, tell me, "Oh, James, when are you going to go on YouTube?" I said, "I'm not." And they look at me like I'm an alien. And I tried to explain to them. I said, "Look," I said, "if I interview a Dutch player or manager that interview is conducted solely in his or her mother tongue. It's got nothing to do with English. So that means that I would have to put on YouTube a Dutch language video for 20 minutes and also do the subtitles to translate it. To translate it from a written sense, for me, is not a problem whatsoever. And it's a lot quicker. But I don't have an ESPN behind me. I don't have a BBC behind me. I'm a one-man band with The Secret Footballer as a publisher and also Football CFB. So, and you're not in competition with anybody else. You're in competition with yourself.
Exactly.
How can you get better? Without a Roland Bergkamp, there would be no Jamie Carragher. Without a Maurice Stein, there would be no Bob Wilson. Without Jean-Paul Boetius, there would be no Graham Potter. And it's about treating everybody the same. And it's about saying, everyone has a story to tell. I never thought in a million years that the Secret Footballer publisher will come in for me. And when I told people, they said, the Secret Footballer, it must be amazing, you must be rich. I said, no, it's not about money. It's got nothing to do with money.
It's about enjoying what we're doing. And that's the main thing.
And it's the reward, because I never saw it coming. And you've got a publisher who's published reputable books and that are coming to me and asking me, can we please have your interviews? They could ask anybody they want. But thankfully, I've got a massive portfolio, and you stay the same as well. It's been great. It's been great to talk to you tonight. I've really enjoyed it. Look forward to next time. Nice to say hello to all the viewers again. Nice to say hello again, because I'm sure a couple were wondering where I'd gone. But as I say, it wasn't deliberate. I just never saw the Secret Footballer coming, and it's about taking your chances when they come. And stay tuned for a few interviews. Cohen Bramall's coming up, I believe, on the 10th of March. And then we've also got the likes of Trevor Stephen, Pat Nevin, and a few surprises in between.
Yeah, if you just bear with me, Stefan in the chat has asked for the link, so I'm going to put a link quickly. Gary's done it already, don't worry, that's fine. So go follow that link. This is the link to James Rowe's Twitter and all his interviews and everything he's ever done with Bob Wilson, Jamie Carragher. What was it? The brothers as well, wasn't it? The managing brothers. Oh, what's their name? I can't remember their names. Their names have gone.
Danny Cowley.
Danny Cowley. You name it, it's all there, and it's all fantastic. It's fantastic read. You will not regret going and giving that a look. Basically, Talking of, just literally, I know you're running for time because you've got other commitments. What's the latest on the Ajax goalkeeper? Because UEFA have banned him for 12 months in the last month for what was it? Was it illegal use of a substance that obviously could be deemed as a enhancement, basically. But he's claiming we're appealing it because on the basis it was a medication that was given to his girlfriend at the time, and because he was so ill, he didn't read the instructions of what was in it. And made a mistake, made a genuine mistake. That was it, nothing else. And that was so. But I want to get your thoughts. It's more there. You're getting the full.
Well, you can see an awful lot got lost in translation. You can see an awful lot. First and foremost, he was feeling unwell. It was also medication for his partner, and he didn't read the instructions, and he thought that it would be okay. Ajax are also fighting the case, and UEFA could have been a lot more heavier than what they actually were. But also with Onana, he turned down Olympique Marseille in the past. He had the opportunity to sign for Marseille, and he turned it down. When Ajax were knocked out by Spurs in the Champions League semi-final, he was accused of time wasting, which led to more minutes being played. But they're going to be fighting the case, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I think, unfortunately, he will have to sit out that ban. And therein lies what happens to somebody's career, where somebody who was linked with Chelsea. I think as well, to turn down Marseille, I know they're struggling at the moment with off-the-field problems. I think that was a little bit of an oversight from him. But it was the talk of Amsterdam when the news broke, especially among Ajax fans. It was like, how could somebody be so stupid? But unfortunately, these things happen. But normally, if you are feeling unwell, you go to the club doctor or they come to your home. So his oversight of taking self-medication has proved to be a very grave mistake in that respect.
Yeah, and what was the final score? Was it 1-1 last night for the Ajax match? Tadic with a penalty.
They won 2-1 in Lille.
They won 2-1 in the end because I was keeping on my phone. The phone was okay.
Yeah.
So was that the away leg as well?
Yeah, the first match was in France, and second match will be here in Amsterdam. Should Ajax and Arsenal get through, I think I will be very, very busy. But I'll be making time for you regardless. But if it is Arsenal Ajax, it would come full circle. But we'll just have to wait and see. Get past Benfica first, eh?
Yeah, we've got to get past Benfica. Ajax have got to get through their tie, obviously, and do their part at home. But it's been obviously fantastic to have you back. As you said, we're going to hopefully get more regular now, but obviously in line with your work. Once we can sort the schedule out, we'll plan more in advance and things like that. And even the chat as well. The guys in the chat have all enjoyed listening to you throughout the night. The amount of compliments coming through, literally, it has been really, really good. And again, Apollos are saying in the chat, rest in peace to Rangers and Dutch legend
Fernando Rickson. He suffered a motor neurone disease. But it's a great point that he makes as well, because the heart and the desire that the man had, he never gave up. Never gave up. Never let it get him down. He was always, whenever there was any news footage, he was always smiling. It was always when he was with our old teammates, because also he had a history with Fortuna Sittard as well, and he was always just he was also capped at international level. In the early 2000s, he was drafted into squads, and things went very, very quickly. But as the viewer quite rightly points out, it's a massive shame, but never forgotten.
Yeah, and Paulo goes on to say lastly, he's a great player, always upbeat as much as he could be.
Absolutely, well, he's absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on.
The assembled, in terms of that, I don't know if you must have jumped out for a second. We did touch on that right at the beginning. So if you want to go and literally the first 2-3 minutes, I do touch on my thoughts on that yesterday's game and the whole ethos of it. But James goes into more detail as well. He gives his thoughts on it as well before we went on to the Arsene Wenger situation and everything else involving Arsenal tonight. But as I said, I really enjoyed it. I hope everyone else has enjoyed it as well. I hope, James, obviously, we can get you back on, as I said, especially if after both get through and it comes up, we play each other. We've definitely got to do like before and after this, that, and the other.
Yeah, I'll put you front of the queue. I'll put you front of the queue after in front of TalkSport and all the others.
I bet they'll be so pleased.
Yeah, no, but if we do get through, it would be nice, because I'll leave viewers with a final anecdote, because I'm sure for the older viewers that remember me, and for the newer viewers, they might be wondering what is a die-hard Gooner doing in Amsterdam. Well, for those that can remember, in 2003, Arsenal played Ajax in the second group phase of the Champions League, and we were drawn against Valencia, Ajax, and Roma. And fate conspired where I managed to get a ticket in the away end that night in Amsterdam with my mate. And 2 years later, I emigrated to this city. And if you'd have told that Gooner at 19 years of age in the away end in the Amsterdam Arena, as it was called back then, that you go on to live in Amsterdam for nearly 15 years, and that you interview Dutch players and managers in their mother tongue, I would have said you was mad. But it's the importance about taking opportunities when they come to you, and just giving it all you've got. And fortunately now, with obviously the Secret Footballer and making sure the interviews are on point, it's always nice. So I'm quietly hoping that things will come full circle, that nearly 20 years on, but Arsenal play Ajax again, but just a crying shame that the fans won't be able to attend, and it wouldn't be even more special.
Oh, it would have been, especially if both legs would be allowed to go ahead at their own stages. That would have been even better as well.
Absolutely. But we shall just see. We shall just see how it goes.
Well, we will. We definitely will. And as I said, obviously, depending on what happens next week with your work, and obviously with the Arsenal game in midweek as well, we'll try and get back on for the aftermath and see, get our thoughts on that, not just Arsenal and Ajax as well, and the Europa League in general, because obviously when they know the last 16? Is it for the Europa League after this?
The last 16, yeah. And
so the last 16 teams, so we'll have a more rough idea who's
playing
mindset-wise, who's playing who, and then who's sort of got that chance of winning this competition and going all the way and things like that. And even because, as you kept saying, since we've done this channel, what outsider? Because there's always an outsider. You never expect to get to the final. Always, every season.
This competition, always. In this competition, hopefully it'll be us this year. But if you're asking me for an early prediction, just have to think. I think if they kick on, I think potentially Leicester. I think a lot of Premier League pundits are saying, "Oh, the Europa League is gonna undo them." I think the opposite. I think if they get past Slavia Prague, I think it'll give them a new lease of life. I think Leicester could well be potential finalists this year.
Well, it's unlike last season where it all fell apart. They didn't have the backup, whereas this year, if it did fall apart in the league, they've got that backup just in case. Just like we did a couple of years ago, I think we messed up both times. Let's not even go there with that one again. And one, go down memory lane for that, please.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. But but also they've got a good squad. They've got a good unity. As you said, they've done the right things. The owner does the right things. There's a feel-good factor. No matter what's happened since they've won the league title, the ups and downs, there's always that unity. There's always that togetherness. And you know what? They won a Premier League title. Why not go and win a European Cup? If it ain't going to be us, it may as well be someone like them. As long as it's not them, not down the vote.
Well, they're playing Wolfsburg Spurs, and Wolfsburg are a very small team, a very small population as well. But this tournament always has surprises. Last night, Young Boys against Bayer Leverkusen 4-3. Young Boys,
that's it.
And other ones as well. Antwerp making life difficult for Rangers. You know, it's not easy. So be interesting to see. But we'll be catching up again very soon. Lovely to speak to you. Regards to everybody in the chat and on the viewers. And so you can check my work on @JamesRowanell. Check out The Secret Footballer. If you Google me as well, you'll see all the other recent interviews through the years. So great to be back again, Ryan, and we'll speak again very soon.
Yeah, definitely. And then with that, guys, if you're new to the channel, you've liked what we've done tonight, this little podcast from between me and James and all the other stuff we do on this channel, do subscribe, do smash that like button, do share the content around as well. Don't be afraid to share, not just Arsenal fans, but football fans in general, because we do cover outside of Arsenal as well sometimes as well. So it's not the worst thing in the world. And when, as someone said in the chat, they just come across, Shane in the chat was saying earlier, about 10 minutes ago, he said, I just come across your channel recently. He obviously loves it because there's no agenda behind what we do here on the channel. If it's not myself or the guys we have, the panels we have on the channel, as well as we're always genuine Arsenal fans, speaking from the heart, basically, and just say it how it is, and not play act.
Absolutely.
And not in the States play acting, having a go at someone for no reason. Just not naming names, but yeah. But with that, not naming names. That's all I need is him coming at me. Bloody hell. With that, enjoy the rest of your evening, guys. And we're back. We're all on the channel-wise. We're back tomorrow for a Who Am I quiz that Mike McDonald again is setting up again. We've got Danny from Burkamp Wonderland coming on. We've got Richard coming back to defend his title for the 5th time. Myself, Melvin, James Howson, and there's I'm waiting to hear back on one other person. And yeah. All systems go there, and until then, as always, up the Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners.
Up the Arsenal. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.